Hi, everyone.
Hi, how's it going? Welcome back. If you're new to our channel, we are the Neogenian Oculus, and my name is Philip Shope, and this is my channel co-creator, Susan Mitchell. And today we're going to be talking about death, immortality, and transhumanism, three really interesting topics. And I know last time we went live, you guys said you really wanted more of the death stuff, so we thought we'd add some new spins to that. Also, we wanted to preemptively thank anybody who likes the video. We really appreciate that. Feel free to subscribe, share the video to your friends, to your channels. All of that really helps out. Also, thank you to anybody who feels like they want to super chat. Don't feel like you have to, but that's another great way to support. And thank you to Jan for being in the chat. I saw that you came in and said hello. Jan is one of our moderators. We also have Mark and Elise. So if they come in, be sure to say hey to them. So thank you for joining us. Just to start off, before we get into the actual topic, Susan and I had an announcement. You may have seen in the chat that people are using our new emoji. That's an emoji that Jan actually worked on for us, and it is the inner star emoji. It's the person ripping open themselves, and you can see that inner star person, the higher self person inside of there. So feel free to put that in the chat at any time to show your support and enjoy that. Also, today is our end of the month stream, so we're going to have a members only stream after this one, and we actually have some more announcements that we're going to save for that members only stream. So be sure that you're there. We have a few different ones, and they're really exciting, and we're just going to kind of have some fun. So hopefully we see a lot of you guys over there. So let's just go ahead and say hi to everybody.
I noticed that Elise just came in. That's hi, Jan, and hi, Elise is one of our other moderators, as Philip said. And we have a ton of new people coming in. But first, I just want to say thank you to Pooks, who just became a member or upgraded.
Awesome.
Yeah,
So
welcome
you'll
to
be able to come
Wavelet.
to the member stream, which I
Yes,
hope you do because we have great stuff.
I hope you do. It's going to be a good members, and maybe that'll be your first one. I saw that Lee just came in and Cassidy came in. Michelle just came in, and we were looking at who was in, and when I said hello earlier, and we noticed that we have some regulars that we see, but there's someone named Japheth, and we don't know if that's the right way to pronounce your name. Please let us know. And
Also, I noticed we have a birthday in the chat. So I think Spectral mentioned that it's your birthday or your birthday weekend. So happy birthday to Spectral.
Yeah, Flower, Laura, thank you. You just super chatted and said, just because. I love that new emoji. Thanks for explaining it. I thought something like that. I am so glad to be here amongst the best people. We appreciate that so much. And oh, I got it right.
Hi, Michelle.
I said it right. It's Japheth. Yeah,
okay.
we had a big discussion about that. Anyway, I just saw that who else just came in? Jeannie came in, and Crystal. Hi, Crystal. I hope I've said hi to everybody. It's awesome to see you guys here, and I think you're really going to like this topic. It's something we've been talking about all week, and
also, I think it's something that a lot of people are really interested in. I know that we've done a few different streams on death in the past, kind of looking at the different aspects of it. Like we've talked about the grief side of it, different things. But you guys have let us know that this is a topic that you really enjoy. So today we thought we would add some different things into it, like on the immortality and transhumanism side, and just kind of touch base on all of those different topics that we know you enjoy.
Yeah, and everything comes obviously through the Neogenian lens. And if you have any questions about how we specifically see something, please let us know and we'll address it. Hi, Eric.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And specifically on the topic of death, I know we talked a lot about the death of the physical self in our last stream. That was kind of the main topic about the difference between our infinite existence versus the finite existence. And so with that, we kind of touched a little bit on abortion. I know abortion's kind of a controversial subject and you kind of have to tiptoe around it, but we don't mind getting into the controversial stuff because it has so many great implications about our eternal nature. And we also talked about death with dignity, and how Susan and I are really passionate about that topic. And we could go into a whole aside on that, but if you'd like to hear our comments on death with dignity, check out our last stream. We also talked about how death is, a huge topic for humanity, and we think that the majority of humanity fears death, and that's why we kind of have the attachment to our ego self. A lot of people are not ready to leave behind everything that they know, and people love being who they are, and they kind of have a fear of leaving that behind. They have that attachment, and so what I was going to say is understanding this finite existence is only a small portion of our eternal existence. And that's what Susan was talking about when she said we're going to look at things through the Neogenian lens and understand the nature of a zeta, which is what you are. It's what you are eternally. It's what I am eternally, all of us together. And so we also briefly talked about immortality in our last stream, but I thought that we could kind of feather that out a little bit in this stream because there's so much more to talk about. And Susan, you kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the problems with immortality, didn't you?
Yeah. And first, I just want to talk about that fear of death, because we will be getting into that. That's huge. That the fear of death, I think, is the reason why people are obsessed with death and thinking about it and have so many questions, because it's natural to be thinking about this all the time and be wanting to have answers. So we're going to get into that a lot more, and we can talk about this until, because it's a process in terms of integrating it and really understanding and allaying fears and progressing, mentally with it. Thank you so much, Morg.
Yeah, hi Morg. Thank you for the super chat.
Thank you. So, but I wanted to say one more thing about the fear of death. It's not just the attachment to ourselves. It's what so many people have been taught is all that we are. So that's why that attachment is there, because if that's what you think you are and what you're going to be forever, you don't know anything different. You can't think about anything different. What was it that Morg just said? It was a quote by somebody in a previous live stream and when Morg saw it, said, "Oh, that's so good." It was about, no, it was Morg's quote that Michelle had posted. And it was something about, if you don't keep an open mind, oh, I'm really butchering this, but if you don't keep an open mind, you're not going to look out elsewhere. If you think you have all the answers, you're not going to look anywhere else. So if you're stuck in the mindset, with the knowledge that you have, thinking that this is it for you, this body ego, of course you're going to be terrified to lose it. So with our perspective, we understand what we are in a much larger sense about being a zeta, which is ultimately how we need to progress to be constantly thinking about, so that it becomes natural, becomes so integrated into you that when you think about yourself, you immediately recognize you. That immediately comes to you that what you are, that you're a zeta, and that this experience is a temporary version. This is the one you're working with right now, with the ego and the avatar combination. So with that said, let's go into the idea of immortality with this combination. If this was,
right,
if
when
this
you
were
said
it.
When you said keep an open mind and not think that you have all the answers, that immediately got me to thinking about religion, because when you're religious, you have the Bible, you think you have all the answers right there in that book. And that brought me to thinking about something called spiritual immortality. And when you hear that phrase, spiritual immortality, that might make you think, whoa, if you're having spiritual immortality, you're already dead. So what does the immortality aspect matter? But if you think about Christianity says that God created your soul. And so that would make it immortal and not eternal, because they say God knew you before you were born. He knows you after you were born. But the idea that Christians have about their soul, the idea that they have it, the soul embodies their ego self or their persona even after death, and that God knows you, you go and be with God, and you're still your ego self in heaven or wherever you go, Whereas with us, we understand that the Zeta has multiple ego selves and multiple different lives. It's it's eternal. It's not created. There's not a God that created the Zeta that is you. And so you will live multiple different lives. And also with Christianity, they talk about the reincarnation of the ego self. So you're brought back from the dead to live in heaven on earth. After everyone goes to heaven, the war with the devil plays out. God will recreate heaven as heaven on earth. And so they don't talk about the ego self in terms of the Christian soul, but that's what it is. You are like, I would be Philip Shope for the rest of eternity or whatever, and God would have created my soul. And I used to believe that, but that's not what we believe with the Neogenian system.
Yeah, immortality means that you have a beginning, and then, well, it depends on what you think of as immortal, because you can, there's immortals who won't die unless something happens. Like, think of a vampire, right? So they get killed, then they're gone. But they're immortal in that they're not going to just die of old age. Eternal means no beginning, no end. So people, even, they will use the word eternal, and I think we've discussed this before, in terms of God creating you, but then you're going to spend eternity with God. But that doesn't, you're going to spend the rest of existence with God. It's not really eternal, because you wouldn't have been eternal at that point. So we know that we are eternal as Neogenians.
I also was thinking about there's another example of spiritual immortality with the Egyptians. You know, they went through all of the preparations of their physical self to prepare for the afterlife, all of the wrappings and the jewels and the spells on their sarcophagus to carry them into the underworld in their journeys. And so they also had the understanding that after they die, their ego self, or who they were in life, would continue after death as that same person, and that they would go through all those trials in the underworld. And, you know, it's kind of a long journey to be reincarnated.
And you and I talked about this week, issues with being forever what you are now. Imagine that. Like that's having this ego avatar combo forever is so bizarre to me. So many questions get raised, for one thing, and all the perspectives that different people have, different religions have with this. But one of the things that comes to mind immediately is you're going to have this one kind of entity to have all your experiences. And Michelle just said that would be agonizingly boring. And in fact, on our outline notes that we have from the things that we talked about, the very next bullet point, Michelle, is boredom and stagnation. I mean, that would be so, you'd still grow, you'd have experiences, but to be only, imagine, you'd only be this one type. You know, I want to experience everything. So
you also wouldn't gain a lot of different understandings of the world, because you're always trapped in that mindset of who you are, rather than living life through different sets of eyes, through the multiplicity of different lives that a Zeta will go through.
And you would be, you'd be stuck as this, you'd have to, I don't even know if you could eventually disregard your avatar self as you, but that would be missing the whole point if that were true, that your avatar would be the reality. So it's very bizarre to me. It doesn't make logical sense. And one of the things that immediately comes to mind also for me is the mental gymnastics that a lot of religious people have to go through. And again, I was not raised religious, so this is just from things that I hear from what they believe. And maybe you'll know because you were raised Christian. With the resurrection, it's because we know that bodies die. We see it, right? We know that's the truth. So in order to reconcile that with, oh, God created you as this, and that's forever now, the gymnastics is, well, what are we going to do? Where did your body go? What are you going to do? And
well, see, my understanding is that God recreates your body anew even after death, just makes it whole again.
Okay.
That the dead will raise and everybody who died will be alive again.
Here's the question. I mean, so many questions. And I never get satisfactory answers, because when I ask these questions, I inevitably get the answer,
Hmm.
Susan, you're overthinking. God's going to make it fine. Just trust in that process. And I hate those answers. Those are non-answers.
That
But,
made
but,
me think
but
of an.
let me just
Oh,
ask my
go
question
ahead. Go
before I
ahead.
forget. Does God decide? Like, what if you died when you were 105 or you died
Yeah.
when you were 3 hours old? Do you get brought back like that? Or does God say,
Hmm.
no, everybody's going to be 25, like at your peak?
And that also made me think of what you said the other night when we were talking. What about the people who died in like 500 BC versus
Yes.
modern people? Are they all
Yes.
going to come back at the same time? And,
Yeah.
their interactions with each other, there would be
Yeah.
such a,
The
social break with
yeah,
the different millennia that you come
the
from.
people from the Middle Ages, they're going to huddle with those people, and we're going to be, with each other in this sort of,
Hmm.
with these time. It doesn't make sense. I somebody explained to me how. Yeah, Nanu said the good points. Yeah, these are the things that I think about when somebody tries to introduce this nonsensical, you know perspective. And again, the Neogenian perspective, coming back to, to our outlook, explains all of this rationally, which is why it's so attractive to me. Because if you have questions and are going to ask them, you want answers that are going to make sense. Somebody
Hmm.
said something really good up here. That I love that you guys talk about the things that we're talking about, and you're having discussions with yourselves. um but somebody said something about it wouldn't be a good progression. I can't
Yeah,
find it. There's too many
I
too
think
many good points.
also Lucky said a little earlier, I think true immortality would be a curse, but living longer sounds cool. And we are going to talk about that. But
Yes,
there's
yeah, we'll
just
get
so
to
many
that.
questions and problems with immortality. Immortality is romanticized, especially in Greek times. They looked at the Greek gods as these heroes, that would live forever, that were immortal and could do all kinds of things. And immortality has been sought throughout history. And if you look at alchemy, alchemy was understood as kind of a practice of seeking the philosopher's stone to make you live a lot longer to gain that immortality. But then it also has the occultism side of it, of the transmutation of the self and becoming enlightened. But people do desire immortality because, not, well, it sounds cool, live forever, be untouchable, but also because of that fear of the unknown that we talked about at the
Yeah.
beginning of the stream, and the attachment to the current ego, the current avatar that you know as Philip Shope or Susan Mitchell or whoever, because people don't know anything else in terms of the Zedic perspective. They don't have that understanding like we do. And that's why we're trying to share this information so that people can understand that we are a Zeta and we are eternal and we will live multiple lives. And, in terms of Lucky's comment about living longer, there is the possibility of extending our life beyond the maximum age that we can currently reach now. And we could slow our age through medicine, and you wouldn't be immortal in the sense of being invulnerable to disease or injury or anything like that, but that is something that could potentially be reached. It wouldn't be living forever, but maybe a little longer, or being healthier in those later years and stuff. And
Yeah.
we're not against scientific progression,
No.
but what we're saying is you wouldn't want to exist for the rest of time as who you are.
Yeah, and I mean, the people who do want that, I think it's because, again, I think it stems from the fear of death, and the clinging to the identity that we're used to. We can't imagine not being this identity. Now, uh, that said, I think it is also important to point out that a lot of people say that you need to kill your ego, and we are not saying that you should not identify with your ego,
Mm-hmm.
or think that your physical avatar is not important. And they're both very important, because each lifetime is very important. We're not trying to
Mm-hmm.
belittle that at all. The ego is what helps you to navigate life. If we
Yeah.
didn't have that, we would be lost. And our
I very much love my life as Philip Choate, but I have the open mind that I will probably love my other lives as well.
Yeah, something that I think about, and I think I said this last week, is that just keep reminding yourself, if this starts to get to you, just remind yourself, I've been through this before. I've been
Hmm.
attached to me many, many times, and and I will be the same way in the future. This isn't all that you are. It's one aspect of you. And if you keep focusing on that, if you start to have that fear of death or fear of the unknown, or you're just trying to integrate this knowledge into you, just keep going over that. Just, that's how you integrate these things. Jan just said something. Can we really remember our past lives that we loved so dearly? And I wouldn't worry about not remembering this one. Um, in terms of remembering past lives, I think, because a lot of people, you wouldn't believe how many people say that they were Cleopatra. I mean, if everybody
Hmm.
was right, I don't know. I've never felt that way. I was
Yeah.
probably,
Vibrational also said, I want on demand access to memories of all my previous lives. And that would be cool.
yeah. And,
But at some point, it might be overwhelming too, unless it was on demand, like you said, that you could tap into it.
yes. And I think you can. And I think some people can. I think that you wouldn't want all of that knowledge all the time in your head as you were living this life. That's, you wouldn't be able to function. It would be so distracting. Can you imagine? It would be like having all of you in here with this aspect of you. The reason
Mhm.
that we don't is you need to be able to concentrate on being you, but also this is who you are right now. This is the dimension of you, the aspect of you that's having this experience. This is unique and should be, revered for that. You should get what you can out of this. That's why it's important to constantly be working on yourself and evolving.
Yeah.
um, each lifetime is very important, but keep in mind it's not all of who you are. So it's a balance of recognizing that it's important and the reasons why it's important, but at the same time recognize that it's not everything, and the
Yeah.
understanding the bigger picture. um hi.
Also,
Yeah.
since we're talking about remembering our past lives and immortality and all of those things that go along with that, another section of this topic that I wanted to bring up is something called digital immortality. So, if you think about photos of your loved ones or videos, those are preserved aspects of your loved ones. Those are digital aspects that will live with you for a long time, but they are just that. They're aspects of your loved one that you have preserved in that format. They are not actually your loved ones. And so there's a lot of different people that are talking about in the future, we will be able to have AI enhanced or emulated recordings of ourselves or of our loved ones that we can interact with, that are something that we can ask questions and it will be able to interact with you based on the way that your loved one or that you acted in life. The AI would kind of use that and recreate that, but that's not actually the true self. That wouldn't actually be me, or it wouldn't actually be anybody that you loved. It would be a representation that has been enhanced through AI. And it sounds really cool, if you really miss your grandma or a loved one, it would be cool to be able to go into VR and have a conversation with this AI representation that can speak back to you and that looks like them. It could be a perfect digital scan of your favorite time period of what they looked like, and you would be able to have these long conversations. And depending on the complexity of the AI, it may be really realistic and lifelike, but that's not your true loved one. That's just a representation based on previous aspects of them that have been enhanced through the AI.
I see the two sides to this, and one is very attractive. The idea that, and I'm sure that this will happen, like it'll get more and more developed until it's really excellent technology, where people will automatically get their personalities and the way they speak, and obviously the physical, so well recorded that AI will then take that and be able to reproduce the more information AI has on a person. And I think
Mhm.
if people can sign up and go regularly to input themselves into giving information, so that in the future family members, sort of like the way we thought of or think of taking photos. That was our way of,
Yeah.
you know, hanging on to somebody. We look at the photos of them. This is just going to be an upgrade to that. And the idea, and I was talking when you and I were talking about this the other day, and I said I would love to be able to interact with my dad,
Mm-hmm.
and be able to ask for advice, or just, you know, talk about stuff. And let's say that hi Altair, as let's say that was there for me to be able to do that. It would be very, very tempting. The other thing I think about, and I think they should do it. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm convinced, and I don't see a problem with it for that aspect. But you know what it reminded me of right away? In the Harry Potter books, you know, that mirror of
Yeah,
whatever.
the Mirror of Eris.
Yes.
I think
So
is what it's called. I may have
yes,
mispronounced it.
Harry Potter fans tell us what it was called, Aristad or something. Anyway, people would waste their lives sitting in front of it. So
Mm-hmm.
because it showed, like, let's say that the mirror only showed you your loved ones, for example. It doesn't, but the Mirror of Eris said, "Thank you, Michelle." So let's say that there was a mirror that only showed you your loved ones. I could see that people might, who missed their loved ones so much, may overuse it and get drawn into that. We wouldn't want that to happen. That's not a good thing. It would be nice to be able to go and interact and see them and talk to them, but only for a time. You'd have to recognize that it isn't them. You're not actually interacting with the real person, and that's the point in terms of consciousness.
I love this comment that Elise left. Elise said, maybe if someone had unresolved issues with a lost loved one or someone who passed, could use it as a prompt to work out some stuff, but definitely not as a replacement for those who've passed on.
I think
that's really great. That's a great way to use it as a tool for growth.
Yeah.
And I do think that having that AI representation of your loved one would be very comforting on the face of it, you know, so to speak. But also I think there would be a coldness to it, because even though that they could interact with you and you could talk to it and you can see the physicality, there's a coldness in the terms of there's something empty, there's something missing, and that's their true self. That AI representation can never say to you, do you remember that time we went to Disneyland and had the greatest time of our lives? And or do you remember
it could, if it has that inputted into it.
Well, if the person had it input in, but there's other things that there's just a sort of emptiness to that.
There's a limit. It only can produce what it has given it. It can't. It can't go beyond that. And you know, unless it was going to make stuff up, and what's the point of that? Ultimately, there is an emptiness in that you're not getting the person, you're not getting the zeta behind it. You're getting an AI representation. However, I think what Elise said would be a very good application of it, because if you knowingly went in order to resolve some issues, the way people go into therapy to resolve issues that they have with others, and when the person that they have the issue with has passed and there's no chance of ever being able to do it in person, or there's times when it's just not ever going to be able to happen in real life, even if the other person is alive, you often do that through therapy. Like you can reconcile and come to some kind of that level of understanding where you can let go and live your life healthily. And this
I
would
think
just
also,
be a tool.
like what you said with the letting go, I think that also plays into the grieving process. Some people may unhealthily hang on to that and not properly go through the grieving process because they're hanging on to this representation and not letting themselves go through the process of understanding that zeta is gone. And, you know, I have more to my life. I can't always live looking back. That person is always with me in my memory and in my experiences. But, you know, there could become an unhealthy aspect of trying to keep that person and not go through the grieving process.
And that's a really important point. And I know for me, as I'm thinking about this, having the opportunity to talk to my dad again, if
Hmm.
we were way in the future and this technology was available, I can already see things that I would want to say, to be able to say, even
Hmm.
knowing it's not really to him because he's not there. He's not in this AI thing. Would be very, very beneficial for me psychologically. And so having that opportunity, I can see would be very, very helpful.
Yeah.
Um, so, so the idea of what technology is going to bring, that could be a very good thing. And then there's the other stuff I was trying to explain to my mother on, what transhumanism is, from just having like a bionic leg or some enhanced
Yeah. I
technology.
think we're kind of segueing into, physicality immortality
Yeah,
into enhanced immortality.
right. So I think it's a spectrum when people think of transhumanism, some just think, oh, well, it's enhancements that,
Hmm.
so it's either you're perfectly healthy, but you want something, you want to be more powerful, you want to be a bionic person. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Or you have physical issues and you could have your quality of life could be improved by having technological enhancements.
Yeah.
That's excellent. I don't see any problem with that
And
whatsoever.
I think we have a lot more of that here in just a little bit. But just to wrap up the digital immortality aspect, since we're talking about the progression of technology, Susan and I also talked about this the other night. We kind of get into a little bit of ethics because I don't know if any of you have seen the holograms that people are doing now and recreating voice clips and doing AI to recreate people who have passed away and do new music clips and things. And that, in a way, is a bit of digital immortality. But just like with the AI person, it's not it's not that actual person. I don't know how many of you are rock and metal lovers, but they did a Ronnie James Dio hologram and a Tupac hologram, and they have this projection of the person that's no longer with us playing with the band that played with them when they were alive, which I do think is cool. But then you also have to ask, would that person have wanted that to carry on after their death and have their image and their likeness used for entertainment?
Well, just last night in Jan's live, and I see that Jan just posted that and I don't know who produced this, but they took George Carlin and had a like all brand new material,
Mm-hmm.
but in his style and with his voice. And we listened to it last night. Jan played a clip, and
It sounded just like
it
him.
sounded just like him, and the points, the comedy was very much in his style. I mean, it was in his
Mm-hmm.
style. So if I would have been fooled. So, but they didn't get permission, and his family is saying this is not something that they would have approved of. So you have to start looking into what is legally, ethically allowable,
Yeah.
and that's something
And I
that,
think there's some gray area too,
oh
like with
yeah,
the new Beatles song that they came out with. They used clips that John Lennon had actually pre-recorded, and I think they used AI to mostly clean it up because it was recorded on little video cassettes. To me, that's not so bad because you're not creating something new that the person hadn't
no,
done.
you're,
And I think he did intend it to be,
yeah.
to be released or whatever. They just ended up having to use AI to make it sound better. So I think that's a little bit better than creating something out of the blue that the
Oh
person never
yeah,
had any work on,
yeah.
you know?
There's
And
going to be a lot of issues. I mean,
yeah,
this isn't necessarily what we're focusing on, but it's coming.
yeah,
There's already, I'm sure, being anticipated all of the ways that people are going to take advantage of this. And at what point, like George Carlin's family is around to say we don't like this, but at what point is nobody around to say how you can't use this person's likeness or
yeah.
being in your work, and who, like, is there a copyright on people? Is it going to run out? I don't know. That's not our
I think we're
department.
going to see the progression of technology exponentially speed along.
Yeah.
And the final part of our discussion is the transhumanism subject, which I think is further along on that spectrum that you talked about. But even though the technology hasn't progressed to get us to that point yet, we've been talking about transhumanism for decades. You've seen
Mm.
it in pop culture. I know in our audience, there's probably a bunch of RoboCop fans out there. Great movie. In RoboCop, he died. I think he was a cop. I haven't seen it in a
Yeah.
long time. He died, and they meshed him together with the robot parts. And at first, he didn't remember his life or how he died or anything. He was very robotic, as you said. And then eventually, he started to remember. You also have the Matrix, where after they have woken up or been pulled out of the Matrix, their
Yeah.
physical body has plugs that they've been plugged into so that their consciousness can interact in the cyber world. And I'm sure there's a couple Marvel fans out in the audience. You have Iron Man, who has the arc reactor in his chest that powers his Iron Man suit. And later on in the other movies, he gets into like nanotechnology and stuff, which I don't know how much of that is true to the comics, but it's an interesting concept. And then I know I mentioned this to you the other day, Susan. I always think of the heads in The Simpsons,
Yeah.
like Richard Nixon's head that's still in the little glass jar of water, and they've kept him alive. And
Yeah.
there's many different examples. I know you brought up Data and Star Trek. I've
Yeah.
never really been much of a Trekkie, but what were you kind of telling me about Data?
Well, date, as far as I know, because I'm not a Trekker either, um, but I do know that it's Trekker and not Trekkie. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Jan loves Data. Yeah, he's a full android. So as far as I know, with Data, is that they made a point always and used it in several show storylines to show that Data was not did not have an internal aspect, didn't have feelings, didn't have that, was not human. But because as humans, we always root for that. We always
Mm-hmm.
root for the person to the entity to have feelings, be like us, and connect with others. With the RoboCop, you want him to get his memory back, to not just be this, to remember his partner, the woman. We want, in what was the movie you were telling me about with Robin Williams?
Bicentennial Man,
We want
which that's
him
a little bit different because in that movie, Robin Williams starts out as a robot, kind of like a home butler robot that goes around and cleans. And as technology progresses, they keep upgrading him
till
and
he becomes
giving
human.
him like physical flesh kind of to make him more realistic.
Yeah,
And later on, it gets into him getting physical organs put in so that he can live longer. And he, towards the end of the movie, it's kind of an older movie, so don't mind if I spoil it for you. But towards the end of the movie, he's so human like that he's started to get emotions and he falls in love with a girl. And he's trying to argue that he has become human and he wants to be declared a conscious being. I love that movie. I
yeah.
remember seeing it in the theater as a kid.
I want to see it. And again, it reminds me that that's what we always root for. That's what we always want to happen. We we want the love story, the
Mm-hmm.
connection, and we want them to be conscious. Now, oh, and Morg said, "Oh, forgot about the movie and barely remember it." I haven't seen it. Philip was telling me about it. I want to
Mm-hmm.
see what Jan was talking about Data, um, and
I think
uh,
part of us likes seeing characters like Data and who is the other one, the Vulcan in the first one,
Spock.
Spock. Yeah, sorry, it slipped my mind, but I think we like seeing characters like that because for the storyline, it makes sense to have somebody that doesn't feel emotions because they might compromise the mission or what they're doing on different planets or on the ship or whatever. But it is nice to see the character arc like
Yeah,
Dr. Spock does kind of feel emotions. He just kind of
Mr.
limits them
Spock.
to be more. Mr. Spock? I thought he was a doctor.
The Dr. Spock
Um,
was a completely different person.
oh, okay. Well,
Pediatrician. Yeah.
I think he kind of limits them because he's a Vulcan, to be more logical and to hold logic above everything else. But it's also nice to have the emotions in
But you
there with
see,
it.
with Mr. Spock, I think people very, very much liked any time where he showed emotion, because we're looking for that, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
right. So
He was kind of the foil to the
Dr.
Captain
McCoy.
Kirk.
Oh well,
Well, I was
Dr.
thinking he was kind of the foil to Captain Kirk because Captain Kirk was kind of the ladies' man, the rambunctious one, the
Yeah,
emotional one that kind of led with his heart rather than
yeah.
the logics
But
aspect. And
but
Mr. Spock was kind of his advisor.
it was the doc. I know that the original one
Yeah.
much more than the later ones.
Mm.
Um, but I know that Dr. McCoy and Spock always had their back and forths with who's logical and who's emotional.
Hmm.
They were, yeah, and which one's better. And I saw Kirk as being sort of in between. They had to prove Data's consciousness as his own. Really, Jan? Okay, you know what, Jan, write that down. You're going to tell me about that at some later point. Um,
But I think the point that we're
yeah,
getting
let's
to
get
is
back to it.
the transhumanism topic is so fascinating because we love the idea of being able to blend our biology with technology and have artificial limbs. Everybody thinks it would be awesome to be stronger or faster or live longer, or be able to be more able to think faster and be connected in different ways, which is what I wanted to bring up because in recent news, you see a lot of stuff with Elon Musk and Neuralink. Not even going to get into how horrible Elon Musk is. That's a
Yeah.
whole aside.
Yep.
But Neuralink is interesting in itself. For people who aren't familiar with Neuralink, it is a program that is trying to put little fingernail sized chips in your brain that will help you be able to connect to different types of technology. It will help you regain cognitive decline. It will help people who have dementia or Alzheimer's, who have gone blind or lost control of their limbs, regain those functions. And it's still in the development phase. I know they've done a lot of testing on monkeys, and we kind of talked about that a little bit, but it has promise for what we could do in the future. And again,
Yeah.
there's some ethical questions to it, especially in terms of the testing and figuring all of that out. But like we said before, we aren't opposed to the scientific progression. So if it has enhancements for our well-being or it increases our quality of life, that's really cool. That's something that we could certainly have more of. And in
Yeah.
terms of the Neuralink, I could see how that could help us create connectivity with each other, help us share new ideas. Imagine if you didn't have to put on a VR headset. Imagine if it was a mode in your consciousness that you could switch into and tap into these different frequency domains and experience these different domains with each other and kind of have these different networks that we can meet up in, which I think is really cool. There's a lot of different uh, fantasies that you can have about the possibilities with that. But the transhumanism argument is fundamentally flawed. And this is what Susan and I really wanted to drive home, because the idea that we can reach digital perfection is not a perfect idea. We can't live forever with this Zeta in this body and still expect to be a perfect being, because we need to upgrade. We need to have those different challenges in life and see life through different sets of eyes and different multiplicities or different lifetimes, life cycles.
Yeah. I think it depends on what vision somebody has, and I think that if you're talking to somebody about it, that would be the first thing I would ask is, well, what are you envisioning? What is it that you want? And if somebody says, well,
Yeah.
I
What's
want to
the
be,
purpose you're driving for?
yeah, and I don't think that there's one answer for what people say. I mean, I think on the extreme, somebody might say, I want to make sure that I never die, and the meanness of me needs to be put into something that will be permanent. So to me, that's like linking your consciousness to another avatar of some sort. Maybe it's super advanced and it's humanoid, whatever, who knows, whatever they
Mm-hmm.
want. And it's not ever going to die, or you can then just transfer to something else. So they're just going to, it's going to be this identity moving from an avatar to another avatar.
Do you think that idea is ultimately driven by escapism?
Escapism and fear of death,
Yeah.
fear of not being who you think you are. I really think that that's a foundational issue,
Hmm.
because if one knew what the reality is of who we are and where we are and why we're here and all of that, you don't have that driving need to say, oh, I can never die, you just, whatever, I'm frantic, do something. You wouldn't have that anymore, but it wouldn't take away the drive for in better technology, enhancing better quality of life.
Hmm.
Certainly if somebody is paralyzed, or even if you're not paralyzed, you just, there's something that can augment our, like, deterioration, but not forever, but to take away, you know, old age pains or whatever. They can stop or slow down the aging process. Those things are not bad. I don't have a problem with them. It's just the way we upgrade all technology. But I think that if somebody says, I don't need that, I don't have that fear of death thing, I don't need all of that, I don't have a problem with that. But I think that the fear of death is what drives that very, very extreme um, version of it.
Also, in terms of the uploading consciousness, I think there's a lot of problems associated with that. And whenever I hear people talking about uploading their consciousness so that they can live forever as a non physical consciousness within the cloud or whatever, I still feel like that is depending on physicality, because any kind of digital cloud or whatever is still running on servers or batteries or an electrical grid. And
Yeah,
we kind of talked about this the other day. So even though you are uh, transplanting your consciousness into something else, what happens if that server goes down or the electrical grid is wiped out? You would still
yeah,
have some form of a death, even
yeah,
if it's 1,000 years after you manage to upload your consciousness
yeah.
or
You
whatever.
would then go through basically the death experience. Now you're not attached to any kind of physical form in the holos, so
Mm-hmm.
you're going to go through the process again now. And now, whenever you enter again, relocalization, you're going to end up with a new, starting again with a new ego and whatever form you're in. And so, I mean, ultimately, the importance of understanding the Neogenian system with what you are ultimately, your eternal self, and how it relates to your multiple finite existences with a specific ego avatar combination, cannot be overstated. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
why we talk about it so much, just like, constantly, because it's something that it's so important to grasp it. Everything really hinges on that, how you go through life, how you're going to go from this moment forward, and knowing what you're doing for yourself, but the collective as well. It's just, it all hinges on that understanding. So
Mm-hmm. And we call this our finite existence in this physicality for a reason, because it's not eternal. The zeta that you are is eternal, it's non physical, and it will always exist. But no matter whether you try and upload that into something else, like a cloud or a server or a robot or whatever, that is ultimately finite and it will not last forever.
yeah, that that is, you said that's not ultimately finite, that is ultimately finite.
Oh, I meant the zeta is
Oh,
not
yes, yes,
finite.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. No,
So,
yeah. So what we're doing is, we're, as we discussed last week, it's how the finite and the infinite interact.
mhm.
But the eternal being that you are, which has no beginning and no end, and goes through these cycles, is what you are. That is
Mhm.
the you. These are just incarnations
There's
of you. You
there's so
know.
many different concepts when we get into transhumanism and digital immortality and all of that that we could just play that out for a long time. And this is what you guys said you're interested in. So if you guys still want to continue these sort of conversations, or if you have other aspects of it that you'd like us to talk about, definitely let us know. I know near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences was another thing that got brought up last week that we could maybe talk about a little bit in a future live stream.
Oh,
So
that's a good
we're
one.
going to do a members only stream after this one.
Yeah.
And so maybe we can do a poll or something and see what you guys would like to talk about. So we haven't been in the comments for a little bit. So why don't we
There's a
jump in
lot. Yeah.
there?
I'm seeing so many people are having a really good conversation. I'm just going to scroll up a bit. Macro has said some good things. Hi, Macro. Macro said Neuralink might be good for paralyzed people, but Emotive already has excellent non-invasive hats you can wear and think to control tech. It's a company name. Yeah. Okay. That's cool. That work is very important because that's directly related to quality of life. Now, in terms of Neuralink and the ethics involved, I mean, that would be another whole conversation. I'm very, very mixed feelings about the
I would be worried about somebody hacking into my chip.
I'm thinking about the experiments on the monkeys.
That too.
Ethically, it's going to happen. I mean, somehow, however it's done, not necessarily saying it has to be with monkeys, but this technology is going to be something that people ultimately will want because of the quality of life and the improvement.
I do think it's interesting. Like in one video that I saw, they had put the Neuralink in a monkey and had the monkey playing a video game with a controller. And every time they succeeded in the video game, the monkey got like mashed banana through a tube. And eventually they removed the controller from the computer and the monkey was controlling, I think it was Pong that it was playing on the computer, was controlling the video game just with its consciousness. And I think the way Neuralink works is it reads your brain information, your electrical signals, and makes some kind of data connection through that, which I do think is interesting. And there's all kinds of things that could be applied to, like what we talked about with people who are paralyzed and whatnot.
A lot of implications there.
I just think there's not enough research yet.
Oh, no. I think it's really early stages. I think that video that you're talking about is the one that has, oodles and oodles of views. There are problems. I mean, I've seen stories about his research, which we're not going to touch on that or the ethics part, which, like I said, is worrisome. But just the technology itself, it's one of those things that I would pretty much guarantee that is going to happen. People are going to move forward because there's such a need for it, and the improvement in quality of life is so big.
I see Becca said, what's so nice about having the Neogenian Foundation is we don't have to stress about what happens after our avatar death, and we can focus on inventions that can just provide us better quality of life. And I love that. The quality of life part is the important aspect of that.
Absolutely. That is what we're trying to do. We're trying to improve our lives, the individually and the collective. I think Lucky has said some things.
Hi, Altair. I see that you said hi to me. Nice to see you. I'm not even on the top or on all messages. I was on top messages.
Lucky said, what if your server or whatever is found after being off for a long time? What if it's kind of jury-rigged to work? It would be, I don't know what that word is, would be janky and you wouldn't work right. Okay. Oh, I see. So yeah, if you're connected to some kind of server, computer, and something went wrong with it, it would be like a human avatar when it has a problem, or like the brain. If the brain has a problem, then the connection causes problems. I think that it would always be like that with the interface between mind and avatar, Zeta and avatar. And there's always that element, in dealing with being in the holos. But remember eventually that we're evolving so that we can eventually not have these not be in physical form.
Elise says, thinking about how horrible our healthcare system is at present, seems as though some people would be left behind, care or tech not up to par as service or protections for people with more money.
Ooh, good point. And this is something that could be a real problem. That when as this technology comes out and gets improved, and I don't know who it was that predicted this or has said that this is something that's going to happen, that rich people who have access to this technology are going to, it's going to become a different species. They're going to progress and become so advanced compared to the people on the planet that don't have it. Where the difference, the gulf between what those people have and the people who don't have it. It's Morg might know who that was that said that that's going to be an issue. I can't remember. Hi, Mistress Angelica.
I see a few new people just came in, so I was going to say, anybody who wasn't here at the beginning of the stream, make sure you come to the members only stream happening right after this if you can. We're going to have a few different announcements and just kind of talk about some fun stuff, but we have some things that we want to tell you guys that we've been waiting for. So some exciting things.
Yeah. Kate just said that's just what we need, more privilege for rich people. Kate, I hear you on that. I think that it might again be something that who knows what the world governments are going to do to oversee. I know everyone's scrambling to figure out what to do with all of the advancements that are happening, and they're going to happen so fast, to make sure that we don't have this huge divide. There are some things that you'd expect people to have access to, but then again, you would expect people to have access to basic health care, and look where we are. So if we can't even provide
food
that,
and housing and all of that.
Yeah. And again, that would be a soapbox live stream for another time, just where we're progressing and the state of okay, I'm not even gonna go there, but you can see that this would be a problem. Capitalism will exploit the tech for profit. Absolutely, it will try. And
Cassidy says soapbox live streams are the best.
Oh, Cassidy, you're so sweet. Yeah, you ranting is one thing. You kind of want to rant with a purpose, though. You need to make sure that you're not just screaming about something, but you're also educating, because the only way forward, the only way out of this is to get more people to understand
and to elevate consciousness.
That's it.
We could just get on here and scream and say that the elites are horrible and everybody's horrible. Healthcare is horrible, but it's good to point out problems so that we know what we can work for.
Yeah. But we also always come back to the reason why it's important to know this material. And it's because this is the only way that we're going to move forward, and not end up in the...
Oh, sorry, Cassidy, did I scream a little too loud for people who had headphones?
Oh, oops. Anyway, Kate, you said only see subscribe. What is that? Oh, for joining, you don't see the little... There's a little... I think it's somebody else tell her. Is it a little dollar sign?
I think
is it a little
next to
join?
The subscribe thing,
Does
isn't
it have a join next to subscribe? Kate, where do you live? You should... Oh, are you on your phones? Is it phone that has...
I think if you're on your phone, you just need to close the live chat.
I think you close the live chat, and then you should see the... Oh, look it up.
Or you might have to go to our main page, our main YouTube page.
Yeah, somebody... Whoops. Let me see. What happens if I look here? No, that's not the app I want.
JP Brooks says, I'm perfectly okay with so-called soft or mitigated transhumanism that mainly focuses on enhancing human physical abilities or providing artificial organs for damaged biological organs. And that's absolutely a good thing too. I know recently in the media, I've seen stuff about growing limbs, like, or growing, not growing limbs, growing organs like hearts, or trying to, 3D print biological organs, which would be really cool if we could do that,
Yeah,
kidneys and
yeah,
hearts and lungs or.
exactly. Oh, hi, hi, JP. Yeah, exactly what JP said. I agree with all of those things. Anything that improves the quality of life is really good. Oh, welcome, insert name. Um, welcome whoever that is, who just joined. Whose avatar is that? Um, whose avatar is that? I don't know.
Yeah. So for anybody who's still trying to figure that out, we will have a short break between the public stream and the member stream. So we'll probably go away and get drinks and go to the bathroom, and then we'll set up that stream and you guys can come on in. Oh, and also Kate was gifted a membership by Insert Name.
Who's Insert Name?
You gifted 5 memberships. Thank you so much.
Oh, Mistress Angelica got one. Kate got
that's
one.
so awesome. Thank you. And Morg said, great stream. Thank you. And also thank you for the super chat. Thank you to everybody who super chatted
and joined
and liked the video and shared. Liking the video is really the main thing, that we appreciate that so much. And it's nice to see all of you, because as we say in every live stream, we love our community of Neogenians and everybody that is interested in learning about the Neogenian system. So thank you guys for coming. We're going to wrap this up, and we have our member stream coming here in just a few minutes. So Susan will post the link to that on the community board. You already did.
Yep,
okay, so
done.
On our YouTube page, go to the community board and click on that link, and that is where the members live stream will be.
We'll be in there. Who's Insert Name? Thank you so much. Thank you, Zeus. Thank you, Chaos, for coming. I'm glad you guys enjoyed the stream. We had a great time. We've had a fun time talking about this all week, and we're just going to take a short break, and then we will see you in go to the community board, click the link, and we'll be in there very shortly.
Yeah. So thank you to anybody who super chatted and all of that. And thank you to Jan and Elise for modding.
Yes.
And as always, thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa and Jeannie and Crystal and everybody. And we'll see you. Okay. Bye.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.